Let's talk about languages. One of the important things when it comes to learning languages is to learn words and vocabulary. The more vocabulary and words you memorize, the faster you speak a language. Hi everyone, it's Raf. Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to talk about how to memorize words and vocabulary in a language easier and faster, and without forgetting them, which is actually the most challenging thing when it comes to learning languages, right? Everyone keeps forgetting the words and vocabulary in the language they're learning. I want to talk about this topic today, and I want to teach you how to memorize words and vocabulary without forgetting them. No matter what level you are at right now, you need to memorize words and vocabulary on a daily basis, along with learning the actual language, like the grammars, verbs, and all of those stuff. And what I recommend is to study from 10 to 50 words a day. And for me, I think that 50 words is too many. But everyone's situation is different. Maybe you have no responsibilities. Maybe you're still a student. Maybe you don't work and you have all the time in the world. So depending on every situation, I recommend from 10 to 50 words. Although for me, I think that focusing on 10 words a day and memorizing them very well is better than focusing on 50 words a day, because you're more likely to forget part of them. Also, when it comes to the brain, it's easier for the brain to see a picture of 10 words at once when trying to remember them. But it's hard for the brain to create a picture or an image of 50 words at once. That's why it's easier to focus on 10 words than 50 words, unless you have an urgent situation, as we mentioned before. Now let's talk about the actual steps that you need to take to memorize words in the language you are learning faster and easier. Number 1, write and repeat. It's very important if you want to memorize words to write them and repeat them. Repetition, repetition, repetition. That's all you have to do. And I want you to do this. Bring a notebook. So let's say that your goal is to learn 10 words a day. What you need to do is to write like 5 words, let's say, on a page. Write them on the top of the page beside each other. Keep writing the same word until the end of the page. And do that with each word. And then go to another page and write the other 5 words and do the same thing. This way is so perfect to memorize words and vocabulary. Try it and you'll see. And I don't want you to think that this way takes a long time and repetition is boring or whatever you think. It's not gonna take a long time. Those are just 10 words. Just try it and you'll see beautiful results. Like, I remember when I was a kid in first grade, when we were trying to learn words and letters for the first time, we were memorizing them this way. So it works. Now, after that, leave those words sit in your mind for a few hours and then go back to them again and write them the same way, just like you did before. It's like you're memorizing them again. And then leave them sit in your mind until the next day, and then the next day do the same thing you did the first time. This way you will memorize them and will not forget them again. I mean, unless you don't use them. You need to tell your brain which information is important and which is not. How you do that? By repetition. And this is how our brains work. When we talk to someone or when we read something just one time, our brain doesn't save those things because our brain thinks that those things are not important. But when you repeat studying the same thing or reading the same thing, it's a sign for the brain that this thing is important. That's why it saves it. This is how you tell your brain that this information is important, by repeating it. Or else your brain is gonna delete it. And actually this is a gift, because you don't want to remember everything that you say or everything that you read, because there are so many silly stuff that we don't want to save in our brains, right? So I don't want you to be overwhelmed about forgetting things, because this is the way our brains work, right? And you can always train your memory. And another good thing about writing, you are seeing those words in front of you. So now this is a picture that is saved in your brain, which will help you memorize those words because it's an image, and it's easier for the brain to recall images than recalling the things that you listen to. See, the more senses you use, the better. So you're not just listening to the word, you are writing it and looking at it at the same time. So you are using multiple senses, which will make you memorize those words faster and easier. Now, another thing that you need to consider is that you write the word with the translation. And so by repeating writing the word and its translation, you are going to memorize that word and its meaning at the same time. Because sometimes we memorize words and we are able to remember that word, but we forget the meaning of it, right? It happens with all of us. And it's not going to take extra time, so don't worry. Now, tip number 2. Listen to the words you are learning. So listen to audiobooks, movies, YouTube videos in the language you are learning. And try to choose the topic that potentially has the words and vocabulary that you want to memorize. If you are memorizing words about science, you need to watch something about science because you're more likely to find those words in there. But if you are learning daily used words, then you're gonna find those words in kind of any video or movie or audiobook that you are listening to. Now, why this is important? Because you want to listen to the words used in a conversation to be able to memorize it faster. And especially if that conversation is interesting enough. Like sometimes when you listen to a joke in a movie, you remember that joke because it was interesting and it made you laugh. And listening to the words in a conversation is gonna make you memorize those words easily. Now, tip number 3, use sticky notes. Write the vocabularies you're trying to memorize on a sticky note and hang that sticky note on your laptop or on any object beside you. Just keep that note in a place that you spend most of your time in to be able to look at it constantly. Like for example, if you work on your laptop a lot, just keep a sticky note beside you, and as you work, just look at it from time to time. And I don't recommend to write more than 5 words in there because it's easier to look at 5 words and just read them in seconds and just save that image in your brain. But it's hard to look at 10 words and keep that image in your brain in just seconds, right? It's gonna take more effort and it needs more focus, because you are memorizing those words by just looking at them. So yeah, make it easy for your brain to focus. Now, another way to use sticky notes, and it's to hang those sticky notes on the things around you and write the names of those things in the language that you are learning. That's another fun way to use sticky notes. So yeah, try it. Now, tip number 4, use the words in conversations. When you don't use a language, you forget it, even your original or mother tongue language. And we really see it in real life. When some people move to another country and they stop using their original language, they forget it. And it makes sense. So if you don't want to forget the words, you need to use them in real conversations. If your level at that language is still basic, then you can form one sentence and use that word in that sentence. And if you don't have someone who speaks the language that you are learning to speak to, then speak to yourself. And don't tell me that you don't do that naturally, because all of us do. So normally we think in our heads, right? We have a whole conversation in our head. So try to have this conversation with yourself in the language that you are learning. And this way you are going to be able to use the words you're learning, so you won't forget them. Let's go to tip number 5. Write your shopping list in the language you are learning. We all do some shopping for our home from time to time, right? And because we normally buy the same things like groceries and all those stuff, we kind of make the same list over and over again every few days. So by repeating those words almost all the time, you are gonna memorize them and not forget them. And if you're not a person who write a list for the things that they want to buy, then start doing that if you are learning a new language, because this is going to help you a lot with memorizing words, and it's helpful because it's going to introduce you to new words. Also, turn the language in your phone or laptop in the language that you are learning. We're going to memorize all those words that are used in our phones, because we are looking at them all the time, every time we use our phones. So that's also a good way to memorize some words. So yeah, those were the tips that I really recommend if you want to memorize words and not forget them. If you are gonna try those tips, can you please share the results with me in the comment section below? Let's see how it's gonna work for you. And don't forget, if you are learning a new language and you want some help, in this video I'm helping you to learn language faster and easier. I'll leave the link in the description box. And if you have any questions, you can connect with me on Instagram. The link is always in the description box. Alright guys, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you soon.